Do you hate Sneasler? Does the thought of Sneasler having a bad day bring a smile to your face? Does it make you want to jump for joy when you see everything going wrong for Sneasler? I know the irony because I just put out a video not that long ago saying, or the title was something along the lines of just a Sneasler appreciation video. And while I might love Sneasler, I understand a lot of people do not like its shenanigans. So come here. Come here. I'm going to show you something. I am going to give you a valid option for dealing with Sneasler, and that option is Klefki. Klefki is going to be a great support Pokemon if you want to deal with Sneasler. It is a prankster Pokemon, and its typing of Steel Fairy resists a lot of moves that Sneasler likes to run. Like outside of close combat, which can still hurt, Klefki is immune to Dire Claw. It resists Throat Chop. If you run into the odd Throat Chop Sneasler out there, it resists Acrobatics, and it has access to Prankster status moves, which means it doesn't even care about Sneasler's Unburdened ability. And if you want to bring Psychic Terrain and Psychic Seed, well, guess what? Klefki gets access to Priority Misty Terrain. There you go. Klefki is going to be a really fun Pokemon to begin with, and I honestly think it can be used for more than just disrupting Sneasler. I just figured that would be the hook to get you in to listen to this ramble about the car keys right here. So anyways, what does Klefki have working for it? Well, it's got 57 HP, 80 attack, 91 defense, 80 special attack, so really doesn't matter if you run physical or special coverage on this thing. Its attack and special attack are the exact same. It's got 87 special defense and 75 speed. And honestly, 75 speed is not bad for a prankster Pokemon. Like, if you want to compare other pranksters right quick, and we bring up that filter right here, like, you have Thundurus at 111 speed right there. Thundurus is currently not allowed. Neither is Tornadus, who also has that. And then you get Grimmsnarl, who is 60 speed right there. So when it comes to speed wars between Grim and Klefki, Klefki will outspeed Grimmsnarl, and while Klefki can't do anything to Grimmsnarl with a prankster move of its own because Grimmsnarl is a dark type, it can disrupt Grimmsnarl's partner before Grimmsnarl even gets the chance to move. So you have that working in your favor. And then as far as some other prankster Pokemon go, you do have that 110 on Grafaiai, 85. Okay, you know what? I'm starting to see it. Yeah, okay. Klefki's actually one of the slower pranksters, but anyways, point is, Klefki is able to outspeed Grimmsnarl. That was the main gist I wanted to go for, because if you look at it, Meowstic's got 104 speed as well. You have Sableye, who you are faster than, which is nice. Volbeat and Illumise both outspeed with 85, and then there's Whimsicott with 116. So you know what? I thought I was onto something with the speed for Klefki's speed. Just disregard that. But anyways, Klefki can still disrupt some Pokemon here. 75 is not a bad speed tier in general because you can still outspeed some other Pokemon. Like, there are Pokemon that do tend to be a little bit prevalent with 60 speed, and the ones that are faster than Klefki that don't have Prankster, well, you're going to have a good time in that sense at least. But anyways, Klefki gets access to Priority Misty Terrain, which means you don't have to worry about Indeedee trying to redirect away. With Psychic Terrain, Klefki can just go Misty Terrain. Now we have priority moves again. Indeedee tries to follow me. Klefki's like, this is not a follow me move. This does not get redirected. Misty Terrain. And the other thing too is Misty Terrain for any Pokemon that is grounded will keep them safe from status conditions, so no more Dire Claw shenanigans from Sneasler. That could be really awesome. No more Will-O-Wisp from Weezing or Incineroar. Awesome. Now, the one sketchy thing about the Weezing comment, though, is Weezing does shut off abilities, so let's just check something right quick. Weezing has 60 speed, so Klefki is faster than Weezing, so you could technically go for the Misty Terrain without the priority on Klefki and then still get that in front of Weezing, so in theory, that 75 speed, I'm trying to salvage it. It's not a write-off. It is completely not a write-off, guys. Just keep that in mind. Klefki can go for that Misty Terrain right there. Turn off the status. And the big thing is you don't have to worry about the Dire Claw Roulette. And the nice thing here too is while Electric, Psychic, and Grassy Terrain all power up their respective types right there and give them a power up, Misty Terrain does the opposite. It actually lowers the power of Dragon type attacks for the grounded Pokemon. So if you're worried about, like, say, a Garchomp or a Baxcalibur on your opponent's side of the field, you don't have to worry about Scale Shot or even Glaive Rush off of Baxcalibur being at full power. Similarly enough, you don't have to worry about Dragon Claw coming off of Garchomp. If you run into the odd Outrage Dragonite or even Dragon Darts Dragapult, that could be really nice for the Misty Terrain to help you out for your grounded Pokemon right there. If you're grounded, the Dragon power is reduced, so it doesn't really matter if your opponent is a flying type. So you do have that. Also, if I'm wrong, please let me know down in the comments, because it's really good to know your mechanics. And Misty Terrain is not a mechanic I tend to use a lot, so I tend to second guess it a little bit. And unfortunately, though, Misty Terrain also doesn't really have as much going for it. Like, outside of Misty Explosion, I can't really think of any abilities or moves that really benefit from Misty Terrain. It's not like Grassy Terrain where you have the Grassy Glide for the priority, or even say Alolan Raichu Surge Surfer for electric terrain, or even Expanding Force off psychic terrain. So Misty Terrain is a little bit more vague to me, but I think it could be a really fun option. But Misty Terrain is not the only thing we're here to talk about on Klefki here. Klefki gets access to screens, so you do get access to Reflect and Light Screen, which means Klefki can become insanely tanky and soaking Klefki's partners right there. Another fun option that Klefki does get access to as well is the fact that it does get access to Switcheroo. So you could switch your items, like maybe you want to bring a Lagging Tail on Klefki and do something similar to what Grimmsnarl did in Sword and Shield. You can use the priority boost from Prankster and the Lagging Tail to switch the items, and now you're basically going to slow something down and making them go last at the end of each turn. So you could do something like that. Or what you could do too is you could have Thunderwave. Maybe you don't want to run the Misty Terrain. Maybe you want to play with Grassy or Psychic Terrain yourself. And so you could opt out of Misty Terrain and put Thunderwave here, and now you can start paralyzing stuff. So that could be great. This is also another good means of dealing with Sneasler, because now you don't care about Unburden at all. You'll land that Thunderwave. Well, now Sneasler is going to be slowed down, and maybe you have your own opposing Sneasler. Maybe you're trying to destroy the stones with the stones kind of thing right here with Sneasler on Sneasler violence. Like, maybe you're doing something like that instead. So you could have that working for you. Another thing too is Klefki does get access to Psyshock, so maybe you're a little bit worried about your opponent having a specially defensive Pokemon. You could have maybe Psyshock for a little bit of damage. Maybe, I don't know. As far as some other things go, Klefki does get access to Metal Sound, so maybe you want to try to lower something special defense 2 stages. Now, it is a little bit weary to be using Metal Sound, or a little bit concerning because Metal Sound only has an 85 accuracy. But Klefki does get access to Rain Dance, which is a very valid option to have as a priority move right there. Maybe you're playing a Rain team, and maybe you're worried about your opponent switching in a Torkoal on your Pelipper, or maybe you're worried about an Eruption coming off of Torkoal in general, and you just want to lower the firepower from that. Maybe you want to go for that Rain Dance and go from there. Klefki gets access to Sunny Day, so on the flip side, if you're worried about our Chaladon with Electro Shot, just instantly charging and then being able to boost up its own special attack and then fire, well, you can turn that off with Sunny Day, so you do have access to that, and you get access to Sandstorm. I did not know Klefki got access to Sandstorm, but that could be wild, because maybe you're, say, running a sand team. Maybe you have Excadrill and maybe even Houndstone, and maybe you're already out of your sand, like maybe your Tyranitar went down. Well, you have Klefki come in, and then Klefki can set up a late game Sandstorm. Maybe you have a Houndstone in the back with Klefki. Maybe your Tyranitar and fourth Pokemon are already gone. and you want to start clicking Last Respects with Houndstone, well, you can go for the Sandstorm off Klefki, turn on speed for Sand Rush for Houndstone, and then Houndstone goes for Last Respects and does some damage right there. So maybe you can do something like that. A damaging option that you could potentially run on Klefki is Skitter Smack, which is a guaranteed special attack drop. Now, why Skitter Smack is 70 power and 90 accuracy, whereas Spirit Break is something like 80 and 100, that's beyond me, but you could potentially run the Skitter Smack and then just have that guaranteed special attack drop into a special attacking Pokemon. Like, that could be really nice. And another thing, too, is if you think about it, having access to a means of Thunder Wave to slow something down could be great for dealing with an opposing setup sweeper. Like maybe you're dealing with Volcarona because Volcarona is picking up in usage as well. Or maybe you're just worried about Dragapult. You get that Thunder Wave off, you slow those Pokemon down, and then maybe Klefki's partner is a little bit slower than what you just paralyzed, and now they can just flip the matchup right there. Like maybe say for example you're running a little bit of speed investment on a Dragapult, or not a Dragapult, an Incineroar, and you get that Thunder Wave off into the Dragapult, and your opponent just thinks, I don't have anything to worry about them. I outspeed the car keys and the tire here, and they just go to try to do some damage. Well, now maybe you can outspeed that Dragapult and get the knockoff into them, and now maybe they're just down a Choice Band or Focus Sash. Just some food for thought. So that could be a really nice on Klefki. So you do have that working in your favor. And the other thing too is you also get access to Imprison Trick Room. Yeah, Klefki gets Trick Room, which I didn't know it got. I don't think it always had Trick Room either. Like, I don't think when it came out in the X and Y days it had access to it. I think that was a later addition. I could be wrong. I don't know, because what I used to do in X and Y when I played Klefki was Reflect and Light Screen and Thunder Wave with Foul Play. That was my go-to as far as Klefki worked. But another thing I did like doing too with Klefki was I would hold a Toxic Orb and then switcheroo the Toxic Orb onto something too, and then they would get poisoned. And then I would just take it back with Klefki and then give it to someone else and just keep on spreading that love with the Toxic Orb. But like, yeah, anyways, reliving the glory days aside, like that was something that could have been nice, but Klefki does get access to Imprison, and it gets access to Trick Room, and even being able to steal away screens could be really nice, and then that way you don't have to worry about your opponent getting bulky by reducing the damage output of physical or special moves. So you could technically run Imprison there as well. As far as items go for Klefki, if you're running screens, I would definitely recommend the Light Clay, and then that way you have 8 turns of screens instead of 5. But another thing you could potentially do if you're worried about, like, say, Whimsicott, because as we proved, much to my own dismay, there are a lot of faster pranksters than Klefki. You could run a Mental Herb, and then that way you don't have to worry about Taunt, and then that way too Klefki can be safe from the Mental Herb. Like maybe Whimsicott goes for Taunt into Klefki, and then you just go for the Mental Herb activation, and then you just get your Thunder Wave off, and maybe slow down the Whimsicott, and then you go from there. Or Whimsicott's partner, for that matter, because let's be honest, if you're paralyzing a Whimsicott, you better have another faster prankster in mind to do something else to it. You'd rather disrupt Whimsicott's partner at that point. Like, Hisuian Typhlosion Whimsicott is a really good combination right there. So really getting the Thunder Wave off into the Hisuian Typhlosion can be great. And if the Whimsicott goes for Sunny Day instead of Tailwind, well, now you just slowed them down. Now you can just do some major damage to them instead. Or the Rain Dance too. Like, I mentioned Torkoal as the example, but Hisuian Typhlosion, another perfect example right there for having that rain control right there. So that could be really nice. So like I said, Mental Herb, that could be really good for not having to worry about Taunt, and maybe say a prankster comes in after the fact that has Encore after you went for something like, say, Light Screen. Well, now you don't have to worry about your opponent Encoring you into Light Screen again, so you could have that. Another item that I did like on Klefki is Leftovers. So you could run Leftovers on this, get a little bit of HP back, or you could go for a Citrus Berry, especially if you're not running screens. You can go for the Citrus Berry to get a little bit of HP back. And when you look at Klefki's HP, like that 57 is not really a lot of HP, so you do want to invest into your HP. Max invested Klefki gets up to 164, which could be a little bit scary, but it's not the end of the world. Bold could be a really nice nature here, and then that way too, you can go up to 122 without any investment, or if you wanted to, you could run Calm, and then you hit 117, and then you can just kind of divvy up your EVs right there. Like, I kind of like the idea of going, like, say, maybe 164 into Klefki's defense with a Bold nature, and then hitting the 92. And as this is currently active coming up, because Smogon, or not Smogon, Showdown does this, Showdown will actually give you a better way to optimize your EV. So this is telling me right here that this will actually let me save 8 EVs. So we're going to do that. We're going to go for the 180 to hit that 132. And what I was about to do right before this was I was actually going to move the defense down. Oh, that's an EV bump. Good to know. I was going to move the defense down so that I could get the special defense a little bit higher to deal with download. But what we're going to do instead is we're going to drop the HP 1 stat or 1 point to hit the 132. And now we can do it one more time. And then we can have something like this where we have 162 HP, 132 defense, and then 133 special defense. If you're running screens, this is going to be really nice and helpful for Klefki since you do get the extra bulk from the reflected light screen. And alternatively too, and you could technically do it. You could technically go Iron Defense Calm Mind if you wanted to play an offensive Klefki. Like, you could technically do something like that. I don't necessarily recommend it because as soon as you get hit with a taunt, well, now you're kind of in trouble. But to each their own, you could do something like that. As far as Terra types go, like, what you could do is you could potentially run Terra Dark. And then this way too, now Klefki is a prankster that cannot be prankstered. So you could do something like that. Terra Poison could be really nice. And now this way too, if you're worried about that Sneasler, like I started off this video, you could go the Terra Poison. Now you resist both Close Combat and Dire Claw, so you do resist both of those stabs. And now Sneasler has to go for whatever coverage move it's running. So you do have access to that. Terra Ghost is another option as well. Same idea. Now you're just outright immune to fighting type attacks. You're also immune to Fake Out, and you are also going to be resistant to Dire Claw. So maybe that's another good way of just getting around the Sneasler problem. Like, I watched a match in Louisville, and this when the Sneasler hit the field, and then when it went down, the whole audience just erupted in cheers to see this Sneasler go down. So trust me, there's a lot of people that are not a fan of Sneasler out there. So being able to just get around that could be really good to keep in mind for your team building. And honestly, I think Klefki is a really nice option to look into for some flexibility for your team. And then you have some tech working for you that some people might not necessarily expect to see. And also, I heard about this too, and I didn't get to directly witness it, but another thing too is I have to remember which move it is. Yeah, it's Magic Room. So Magic Room for 5 turns turns off the effects of all items. And what I heard from talking to someone in Louisville was they played up against Assault Vested Hydreigon with Nasty Plot and Swords Dance Scarf Garchomp. And basically, when that player was looking at their opponent's team sheet, they're like, is this a mistake? And then the Klefki came in, turned on Magic Room to shut off the items, and now the Hydreigon had the ability to Nasty Plot, and then the Garchomp had the ability to Sword Stance, and then when the items wore off, or when the Magic Room wore off, the items turned back on. Well, now the Hydreigon had the bulk from the Assault Vest with the special attack boosts, and the Garchomp now had the speed from the Scarf. So really, really wild tech and really creative, which I gotta say, as soon as I heard about that, that sounded amazingly evil. And I really wish I could have seen how that worked out. But yeah, it's gonna be a spicy Pokemon to say the least. Who'd have thought the car keys in Generation 9, 3 generations, almost, I think X and Y is something like 11 or 12 years old now. Like, who would have thought after Klefki came out in X and Y, Klefki could still be prevalent. for disrupting super, super common options in metas. So, yeah. Honestly, Klefki is also like one of my top 5 favorite Pokemon too. So just having the excuse to talk about it was something I really wanted to do. But anyways, that is where I'm going to leave this here. Be sure to let me know what you think of the car keys, and yeah, let me know if you appreciate using them or if you appreciate the chaos that could ensue from using Klefki. Anyways, talk to you later.